Hello. Welcome to the Yoga for the Creative Soul book club on this lovely Wednesday at 12:30. We will pick our next meeting up on the Wednesday following Labor Day, 12:30 Eastern Time. All are welcome. And as we're speaking today, we're finishing out chapter 7 of Yoga for the Creative Soul, following that path of the Yoga Sutras to connect to our creative selves. Now, this eightfold path that we've been speaking of over the last few months has taught us to connect to our creative selves through a system. And today we'll do a review of that system and some expressive activities about where is that system actually taking us, how can we interface with the creative soul. But as that teaching is happening, I invite you for the first several moments of our time together today to just give yourself the chance to freely create, whether that's taking a marker and doodling around a page, just letting the lines flow, whether that's scribbling with crayons or pastels, writing down random words that catch your attention that might be writing prompts later on. So many ways to freely engage creatively. And so as we're talking about these limbs of the Eightfold Path, I invite you to play. Now, get to talking about samadhi or super consciousness or the connection to the creative self in a moment. But before we do, I want to acknowledge that this system of yoga is coming from Indian culture and is millennia old, traditionally passed down through oral tradition, through sitting at the feet of the guru. It was very much for initiates, although the sages would travel from town to town and the townsfolk could come gain pieces of wisdom by sitting at the feet of the guru. Now this has come into public knowledge, and it's a great gift for us to be able to study the authentic wisdom of classical yoga, to understand these limbs, these approaches to life, and use them to support us. I also wish to acknowledge the lands, airs, and waterways upon which we have colonized and currently reside. I encourage you to check out whose lands you are living upon, and as the original peoples took great care to listen to the voice of the earth and care for the systems of nature, that we can also be stewards and join the present day stewards who do tend to be of the original peoples of these lands, so that we may remain protectors of this precious unifying force that is nature and the earth. Now, today, as we're working our way through the 8 limbs, through the system of yoga, we understand that they begin with lifestyle recommendations, with ethics, of codes of behavior. And the first limb is to refrain from causing harm. So non-harm, ahimsa, is the first idea. So that's not harming ourselves or anyone else or anything else, not through action, not through word, but not even through thought, that we mind where is there violence, where is there harmful impulses within me, and how can I limit acting upon, thinking, feeling those harmful ways. And kind of umbrellaed in there are the recommendations towards truthfulness, towards remaining a student of divine energies. It's sometimes called continence, brahmacharya, through non-stealing and through not coveting, not wasting our resources wanting things we don't have, or wishing that things were different. So all those things cause harm. And the second limb is about cultivating health and purity on all levels. So Saucha, the cleansing practices for our bodies, our energy, our minds, our psyches. Tapas, the steadfast discipline, adhering to our uplifting choices, our lifestyle routines. Svadhyaya, studying ourselves and studying ancient wisdom. How am I relating to that wisdom? How am I applying that wisdom? As well as contentment, basking in this. It's a mentally and energetically clean quality, contentment is. It allows us to be ourselves. It allows us to rest in what is. It allows us to be thankful for what we have, what is provided for us. And Ishvara Pranidhan, which is the surrender to a higher reality or a higher power, if that is part of your belief system, acknowledging that we don't know everything that's at play in this wondrous universe. So we don't have to control it all. And if things don't seem to be going our way, well, we don't understand the whole picture. We just don't. So as creative beings, when we're limiting harm in our lives and when we're cultivating purity, authenticity, we have more bandwidth for self-expression. There's more available creative resources. We have a cleaner relationship with words. We hear sounds differently. We have more options for movement. The color is perceived with greater meaning. So these lifestyle steps affect us in all areas of life, including our creative journey. The third limb is asana, which translates basically as posture, but teaches us about care of the physical self. Yes, we need to stretch and move. We need to keep the heart strong, the lungs, the mind, the muscles, the bones, and all of our organs. We want to care for through hygiene practices, through nutritious choices, and all of those physical options fit into this limb of asana. And when the body is healthy, again, we have more access to our creative well-being. We're more primed for inspiration. Similarly, pranayama, which is interfacing with the life force energy, breathing practices maybe, give us direct experience of the subtle, because yes, we're breathing the breath and the body breathes the breath, but the breath has its own intelligence. The energy, the animating force carried on the breath has its own intelligence and starts to support us in tapping into more subtle resources. I was going to say otherworldly. If you saw me edit myself there, otherworldly, I mean, that has some connotations that might not land with everyone. But certainly, again, there's more going on than we're aware of. And when we are harmonizing with subtle energies, those subtle energies carry upon them creative impulses. Pratyahara, mastery, to call the senses back from the outer world and to take them into the inner realm where truthfulness lives. Yoga will talk about Maya. Many of the Eastern traditions talk about the illusion of this material world. And when we're trapped in this material world, it's difficult to perceive what's possible, which does dampen our creativity. Where pratyahara, calling back the senses, taking them in, means we're not overly reliant on the illusion of this world. Our senses are lying to us continually. We can only see and hear within certain frequencies. So we know there's all kinds of stuff outside of our regular bandwidth that we can't perceive. When we let the senses relax, when we let the senses passively receive sensory information, in other words, resting these sense organs so that the sensory information moves through them to the mind and to the soul, then we notice nuances that would not be available to us if we were relying purely on that sense organ. because the sense organ, again, is flawed. It's its nature, it's flawed. It's part of the material realm, it's illusory. So relaxing, receiving sensory information gives us more, lets us see through the Maya, or hear through the Maya, or smell through the Maya, or taste through the Maya, or feel through the Maya more cleanly. And then we move into the states of mind where we, or states of consciousness, I should say, where we have been talking about this over the last several weeks, starting with just focusing the mind, which is known in yoga as dharana. Dharana, concentrations, training the mind to be steady. And it does take work, same as training your puppy takes work. No puppy, don't pee on the floor, go outside puppy, no puppy sit, no puppy, no biting, puppy come back here. The monkey mind is so much like that, where it poops on the floor of our minds and it fights us because it doesn't know its own strength. And when we train that busy, jumpy, unruly mind, like, hey, we're cool. Look, there's more to life than what you think there is. Let's just hang out here in the beauty and bask in what's possible. Then we have greater access yet again. And what we know from studies is that even mental focus, we might call this mindfulness as an example, even simple mental focus changes the size and the shape of the brain, gives us greater access to self-compassion, lets us think ahead more fully, allows more lateral thinking. So we can, creative solutions were mentioned during the check-in today. Those creative solutions just land. We're thinking outside the box, and therefore we have more direct experience with what else is out there. Now, practice enough mental focus, you concentrate for long enough, the state shifts. This is dhyana, this is meditation. These are different brain waves. These are different parts of the mind lighting up on a regular basis, and that neuroplasticity continues. The brain continues to build out in the direction of connection, creativity, and the fear-based stuff, the anger, the lack, the parts of the brain that are caught in survival, they don't light up as much. They don't have as rich connection as the parts of the brain associated with upliftedness, goodness, higher perception. So ongoing concentration leads to meditation. Ongoing meditation leads to super consciousness. This is sometimes called enlightenment, samadhi. And when we get talking about this, sometimes folks will say, well, I don't think I could ever be enlightened, or I don't even want to be enlightened. That sounds like a heavy gig. But this, without it being such a heavy gig, all of chapter 3 of the sutras is talking about the layers of samadhi, the layers of ultimate consciousness. And the fact that you even know the word enlightenment means that you have some access to this. You are already partially enlightened because you know it exists. And then you've had your creative experiences, your meditative experiences, your connected, inspired experiences. All of those are aspects of samadhi that are part of your realized wheelhouse, part of your lived experience. So samadhi isn't this grand thing out there. Samadhi is something that is continually happening for you. The more we interface with the nature of reality, consider like, hey, if I were meditating right now, how would this experience land? If I were my mentor, my minister, my meditation teacher, how might I perceive this situation differently? When we understand that there is an abiding, blissful, peaceful reality that is woven through the material, we see it at play. We just see it more. And this could be just commonalities in the human experience. How many times do you remember this in grade school? You'd go to school and that would be the day everybody was wearing green. You hadn't planned it, just everybody decided to wear green that day. I think it still happens in offices and things like that. I work alone. I have no idea about communal work environments. It's funny because it's true. But what I do hear in my work is that some weeks everybody's working on food issues, and some weeks everybody's working on family of origin issues. And some weeks, everybody thought, you know what, I'm just done with this. So when we notice those group commonalities, we are seeing through the Maya, we are connecting to ultimate reality, other trends. These kinds of trends come in all forms. Coincidences are another great example, or synchronicities, these sacred connective moments in time. We're like, why was I at the mall, which I never go to the mall, at the exact same time as my grade 2 best friend who moved out of state? How did that happen? Well, there are more threads being woven together in reality than we see. But when we see those intersections, when we see those sacred moments, those are in the check-in today. Someone mentioned portals as well. That's the entry point to the portal. That's getting into that wormhole and realizing, like, hey, I'm actually in it right now. This is a part of super consciousness. Look what just happened. And remembering again that there are many layers of this super consciousness. So we don't need to feel like, oh, I'm either enlightened or I'm not. No, you're already a little bit enlightened. Enjoy it. And some days we have greater access to that enlightenment than others. But let's continue to support ourselves in understanding. If you want to research it, you can find a more thorough translation of the Yoga Sutras, like the Aranya translation, and dig into that chapter 4 that talks more about these levels, these layers of super consciousness. But what I would offer to you is to play with how, so as we went through these 8 limbs, in many ways, we also went through the koshas, the layers of our being. Play with how these layers of being, your body, your energy, your thoughts, your beliefs, how do they impact your experience of enlightenment? And that's what I would ask you to create today. That's what I would ask you to play with as we do a little bit more for our creative souls here. And maybe you've already started this now that I've given the cue, but if you're still there on perhaps a blank page, I would ask that in some way, broadly on this page, you depict that super consciousness, depict ultimate reality, depict unitive consciousness. There's a lot of great podcasts, Vedic podcasts, that will talk about non-duality. And yoga does tend to hang out in dualism, but it is a journey to non-dualism. It is a journey to unity. And if you even think of the chakra yantras, the depiction of the crown chakra is 1,000-petaled lotus, where in this case 1,000 means infinite, right? But the third eye, as we're coming from the infinite into the material, the third eye is only 2 petals. So we've gone into dualism: spirit, material, spirit, material. And for as long as we are part of the material world, let us always remember that the spiritual component is an aspect of it. So dualism, right? Purusha and Prakriti, if you've studied the Samkhya philosophy. Now that you depicted ultimate reality there on that page in some way, unitive consciousness, the divine, however you define that, depict your body. How does your physical self relate to this superconscious state? How does your physical self relate to the divine? And you might call upon the physical pathways of your creative nature. Our true self, our enlightened self, that is the creative soul. We are of creation, therefore we are creative. And it might not be artistic creativity. It might be through math. It might be through science. It might be through how we relate to our inner circle. All of what we bring to our lives are acts of creation. So here you're depicting your body, your physical dimensions of your true self, how they relate to the soul. And when you have a sense of that being depicted, depict a more subtle aspect of yourself, the energetic self. These might be your acupuncture meridians, your chakra system, your marma, if you know those sacred points in the body, that, or it might be your breath, or it might be the way you perceive your energetic self. But how does your energy body relate to the ultimate? So you are in some way, and if you get stuck, by the way, you can just ask yourself, like, if I could depict how my energy relates to my soul, how might I depict that? Or switch hands, because our non-dominant side has all kinds of its own creative ideas, and the dominance will sometimes be a hindrance. Same as language sometimes gets in the way of our direct experience or expression. When, the intellectual is our friend in a lot of ways, but not always our friend with our spirituality or our creativity. So you've depicted how your physical self relates to the soul, the divine. You've depicted how your energy does. Now depict that mental layer, the thoughts and feelings. How do your quickly changing thoughts, your rapidly shifting emotions relate to that ultimate reality? There's no right or wrong way to do this. You can trust what comes out of you, and if it's not what you meant to come out of you, you can do it again, right? There's no limit to how many times we can play with these activities. And Julia Cameron, author of The Artist's Way, who has taught us so much about being creative, um, she what does she say? Creator, I'll take care of the quantity, you take care of the quality. That she encourages us to be absolutely prolific and know that most of it we're not gonna like. Truly awful, she says. But that's in our own judgment. So you're not getting too hung up on how you're expressing your thoughts and feelings, interfacing with that layer of reality. You're just giving it to yourself, giving yourself the chance. And once you have expressed that, how the mind relates to super consciousness, then go a little deeper, thinking about that less changeable aspect of who you are, thinking about your way of being. If we took a snapshot of you, if we followed you through a day in kindergarten, and then a day in grade 10, and then a day in university, we would see a lot of similar qualities. I remember being, oh man, mid-30s, maybe even late 30s, and someone posted a photo on Facebook, and I knew I had a journal entry from that day, and I went back. I posted a snapshot of the journal entry, 4 colors. My journal is so colorful at the time. I had enough time to switch pens. I don't switch pens when I'm journaling anymore, maybe by paragraph, but line by line on a different color. And the things that I said were the same kinds of things that I would have said had it been yesterday's journal entry. So this more constant part of yourself, how does it relate to that depiction of creativity that you started with? How do your long held beliefs, your steady state personality traits, your juice that makes you, this this body, this mind, this person, how does your unique manifested self relate to that ultimate reality? And you might be thinking, like, what do you mean relate? And even when I'm giving the cue, I'm like, what do I mean relate? But it's cues like that that let you discover your creativity. Maybe it's literal connections. Maybe you're drawing threads there. Maybe it's how that aspect of you moves or plays within the ultimate reality. Maybe ultimate reality is continuing to be fleshed out in this expression and is reaching to those parts and giving them something. There's no right or wrong way to do this. And a lot of the time in this group, the cues for the expressive arts are broad and left to interpretation. This is your freedom to make it your own. Here in this Yoga for the Creative Soul group, our intention is mental health through yoga and expressive arts. When our mental health stuff acts up, whether that's our trauma symptoms, depression, anxiety, interpersonal stuff, career stuff, self-esteem, whatever that might be, when we turn to expressive arts, the things that have been weighing us down, the things that we are processing, that we are cleansing ourselves from as we move on this journey of mental health recovery, those things come out in those creative expressions, and they don't even have to make sense. We don't even have to know what we're looking at. The act of creation, and even now you can notice, like, how's my breath, how's my body, what kinds of thoughts are with me. The act of creation is healing. And then if we take what we've depicted, and if you're done your finishing touches there, you can play along with this even right now. If we take what we've created and we give it some distance and we have a look at it from afar, we might see it differently. It is also recommended, especially if you're doing that kind of expressive arts that that is more shape and color and not so much drawing. But even if it is drawing, flip it upside down and notice what stands out for you that way. It's a bit maybe like handwriting analysis. There are more spiritual analogies for this as well, but we hide symbols in our expressive works. We hide messages in our expressions. And it's okay if you don't ever even notice your hidden expressions or your hidden messages, because the part of you that needed to tell that aspect of the story, it knows that it told its story. It is enough to go through the process. You do not have to do the final analysis. But for fun right now, if you want, do that thing of looking at your depiction from afar, and do that thing of turning it upside down. And just notice, does anything change with your breath? Does anything jump out at you that you hadn't realized you were putting in there? Do you see hidden symbols, messages, relationships in the work? And this is some of the fun of letting that expressive arts do its job in releasing, in bringing us towards greater psychological balance and mental health. And before we sign off today, I'll put it to the group if there's anybody that does want to share on camera and in the video for others to see, you're welcome to. There's no pressure or expectation, just an option if it serves you.
Oh, well. Hi. So, first of all, that was a great practice for me, Erin, because you've seen me through yoga therapy in 3 years, and I sit and write everything down. That's being said, but I didn't do that. So when we started talking about the 8 limbs, I just started crossing over, and it turned out 8 times that, I guess, or 8, I don't know, somehow I counted 8, a pattern of 8 as I was making this. And then it came to mind that I've been really influenced by the milkweed, the blooming, the scent, just the beauty, the colors. And so that's what it became when you were talking about being a steward of nature. And non-coveting is a balloon that's going to be things that are going to be put in a balloon and sent off to the universe, as a representation of letting go of material things. So then I thought this was kind of neat, because for Maya, I took like 4 pens together and I wrote the word Maya. And then when you started talking about intersections, it was kind of like, well, the people wearing green in the office here, we have all these intersections, sacred portals, ultimate reality. This is my exercise in the last part of what you were talking about. And I just kind of did bits and pieces of a moon and the universe. And then I'm down here. I drew myself kind of like reaching out and connecting to it. And then and then I flipped it upside down, and this is a stretch, but when you spell this backwards now, it's AYAM. It's kind of like I am. So
That's so cool. Thank you, Karen. What fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. And that counts, right? Like, especially English is really arbitrary language designed more to confuse the populace and maintain the caste system. So
totally.
yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, I'll absolutely take that.
Thank you, Erin. That was so much fun, and can't wait to be back in September.
Me neither, Karen. I'll miss this. Did anybody else want to chant? I can't see everybody at the same. Are you coming in, Kate? No, it's just your posture. Okay. If you think you're coming in and I was talking, just come in and start talking over me. I can't see you all at the same time. But I encourage everybody through the summer to check back in to the group on Facebook. There will be ongoing posts there, inspirations, requests, reminders, and to stay connected with each other through the group on Facebook, through the personal relationships that you've cultivated through this group. Keep it going, keep it going. And tangents and being disciplined as I speak to you. There's so many things that I want to say, but to carry this 8-4 lesson that we spent so many months working on together, I encourage you throughout the summer, because we're just out and about more. We just tend to, it's a very yang season. We tend to be more engaged. To keep an eye on the sacred mystery, the divine creator playing in your life. I encourage you to acknowledge. I encourage you to absorb. I encourage you to express, and keep me posted, because I'm thinking of you. Post to the group. Reach out to me on social. My phone number and email are in the description below, so you can text or call anytime. I'd love to know what's going on for you. We're back the Wednesday after Labor Day, first week-ish of September, and thank you so much for your commitment to yourself, your commitment to your mental health, your spiritual journey, and your creative soul. See you soon, everybody. All the best.